Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society at large. I am Father George Ehusani, and we have one of those special sessions on health, the building strength approach to healthcare. This is actually our 8th session with Dr. Dayo Ajibade. The last few sessions we talked about the philosophy, the approach, the building strength approach, and then we did the central governing system, after which we now took that central governing system part by part. We did the brain, we did the hormonal system, we did the immune system, and the last time we did the guts, the digestive system of the body. Today we want to discuss the cardiovascular system, and Dr. Ajibade is once again in the studio with us to discuss how we take care of our cardiovascular system. Big words, but he will tell us what it's all about. Dr. Ajibade, you're welcome.
Thank you, Father. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Yes, the cardiovascular system.
Yes.
You said you were particularly interested in this
Oh
one.
yeah, I am interested in the cardiovascular system because I want my heart to be pumping well at age 100.
Age 100.
Age 100. I want to be able to go jogging. I want to be able to play my saxophone, you know.
Yes.
I want
And
to
you need to have good blood flow.
Yeah, I need to be able to play my saxophone at age 100. I want to see these great-grandchildren around me, and then I entertain them with the saxophone. So, to do that, you need good lungs, you need good heart.
Yes.
So what can I do to build the strength of my heart so that at age 100, I am kicking and I am blowing and I am doing the things I love to do?
Okay, absolutely. That's what we're going to talk about. But Father, just to take us a step back, did you say great-grandchildren? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, great-grandchildren.
Not yours, of course.
Yeah, I have many. I have many.
Okay, so the cardiovascular system is a very important aspect. We've talked about so many things. We talked about the brain, we talked about the hormones, we talked about the immune system. We talked about all these different things. But you know what, Father? None of that means anything. We've talked about nutrition, but none of that means anything if the channels that bring the nourishment to these systems and the 12 systems in our bodies is not working well.
Like the arteries, right?
The arteries, the channels. So the cardiovascular system is the shall we say, of course, it's the heart of the matter, because
the heart is the heart of the matter.
The heart is the heart of the matter, which contains the heart and the blood vessels. So let's just use a quick pictorial here. Obviously, the best way to draw a heart is, of course, like a heart like this, and out of the heart flows all the blood vessels. Of course, we have the brain. So blood flows to the brain from the heart. I'm not sure this is a very good way to describe it, but it flows from the brain to the heart, and then of course from the heart blood flows to the limbs, to the rest of the body, to the guts and the rest of the body. It's interesting enough that, Father, it's interesting that the first thing, when blood first comes out of the heart in its attention to go to the rest of the body, the first two organs, because of anatomically, the first two organs that the heart has priority for
that receive the blood.
That receive the blood are which ones?
The brain.
The brain and the heart itself. So these two organs are top priority. As we know, if the brain is dead for a few minutes, if the brain doesn't receive enough oxygen,
for a few seconds,
it's gone. The heart itself too is gone. That's why we talk about heart attacks and we talk about strokes, or brain attacks or strokes, because those are the most critical organs in the body. The most critical organs. Without their functioning, well, you're not really functioning as well. So it's important to understand that. And by the way, the cardiovascular system stands for cardio, heart, vascular, the artery, the
veins and arteries.
The veins and arteries. So they form the system of channels that feed and supply the rest of the body.
So it's like you have this organ, and then there are pipes that run from it and back to it.
Yes.
And that is the cardiovascular system.
That's the cardiovascular system. Very, very critical system. So that's what it needs to do. So like I said, if there's stroke, in the US, for instance, almost a million deaths from strokes, heart attacks, and other related diseases, related to the cardiovascular system. Mm-hmm. Just these two organs,
responsible for a lot of
deaths, and it's again is because something is going wrong with the channels that supply the blood vessels. Okay. So let's look at those blood vessels because it's very, very important. In the final analysis, this is what we're looking at. Remember we drew a channel like this in the last session about the guts.
About the guts. And you talked that the lining could get...
I'm going to talk about a similar thing because what I found out, Father, is that the channels, the lining, the channels through which... Channels are such a critical part in the body. Channels through which either oxygen is going through or food or waste products or urine. If you have channels in the body, those channels need to be protected. They need to be healthy. If anything goes wrong, there's a blockage or anything like that, there's a problem for the rest. There's a problem for the body.
Something like our houses now. If all those channels are not working well, then we run into problems.
We run into problems. So much more for our heart.
So for our body.
You've heard the quote about nature hates a vacuum.
Yeah.
Well, if it's true that nature hates a vacuum, nature hates stasis even much more.
Than a vacuum.
Because once things stop flowing, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We're in trouble. This is most especially important when it comes to the cardiovascular system. So let's assume this is coming from the heart. We can't see it here now, but this is the heart area. And these are the channels. Let's say this is going towards the brain and other vessels. So blood is constantly flowing. Your heart beats about 60 to 72 times a minute. So for some people, it's fewer than that. Some people, it's more than that. But the heart has to be beating 24/7.
Is that the same as the pulse?
Yes. So the pulse is like a measure of the heartbeat.
Of the heartbeat.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what you feel here in the neck or in the jugular.
But when I'm on my treadmill, sometimes it goes as high as 130, 140.
And that's because the heart is... That's because the heart is working harder. So the more activity that is going on in your body, the greater is the demand.
But it is required, expected that it will come down when you finish that activity.
Exactly. Okay. So the heart is constantly responding to the situations and circumstances that your body is in.
Okay.
So if there's more physical activity there, but the heart has to meet up with the demand, because it means that the muscles are needing more oxygen, they're needing more nutrients, they're needing more food and all those things. So the heart has to pump to meet up that demand.
Okay.
Now that you brought up a very important point, because what if the supply is unable to meet the demand? Again, that's another problem, and I can tell you how that can happen. So this is what a blood vessel should look like. From your early years to the age of your mid-20s, you have almost perfect clean. What is spanky clean or sparkling clean. Your blood vessels are clean. Now, as time goes on, that's why aging is not the best of things. As time goes on, is this the right one? Yeah, let me see. Okay. As time goes on, the linings, again, we go back to the topic of the linings. The linings of the blood vessels begin to, over time, they get damaged. I mean, we get bruises, we get cuts, and everything. Same thing in our blood vessels. As time goes on, those linings begin to get damaged. And once the linings begin, it's like a pipe.
Yes.
A hose pipe.
It gets clogged up.
It gets closed up. The way this thing gets clogged up is that the immune system now reacts to those damaged parts, because the function of the immune system is not just to fight bacteria, but it's also to heal and repair damage. Okay. So once there's damage, the immune system comes, which is already inside the blood, jumps into action and decides to try and clean up those things. If the immune system is working well and you have good nutrition, it will go back to normal.
It is expected to go back to normal.
It is expected to go back to normal. But that's only if everything is working well and you have good nutrition. The problem is that most of us don't have good enough nutrition. We don't have the nutrients required for proper healing. So the body just makes do with what it has. And so the healing is not as effective and as complete. So it ends up like sometimes something like a scar tissue. So instead of it returning to a flat where it was before, it may have a little bump here. It may have a little bump here. It may have a little bump here. It may have a little bump. But there's no problem, because the blood continues to flow. The blood continues to reach the brain. As a matter of fact, this thing that you're looking at can be up to 70% blocked.
And yet the person is going around.
Not a problem.
But it's a moving corpse, as it were, because it can drop one. It can
drop any time, especially if this is a blood vessel in the heart that supplies the heart, for instance. It can be up to 70% blocked. You won't feel a single thing. That's why it's such a dangerous thing, and that's why it's so important that we know about these things, especially we Africans, because, by the way, Father, things like hypertension, things like diabetes
are more with us,
and they tend to worsen what I just described.
So what happens in blood pressure?
Okay.
High blood pressure.
So what happens with high blood pressure is that the blood, a couple of things. These vessels are more thickened because there's a formula. I think pressure is, I've forgotten what the formula from secondary school is. But the pressure in the blood is a function of the narrowness or the width of the aperture through which it goes through. Like for instance, if you remember when we were younger, when we used to water the plants,
and the pressure.
If you narrow the tube, it comes out more.
Oh, yes.
If you raise the tube, it comes out less. It's the same way. If the blood vessels begin to get narrow, the blood pressure increases. If there's hardening, if the vessels are not compliant, like they should be flexible and supple. So as blood is flowing through, if it's a lot, it expands to release it. If it's lower, it relaxes, it contracts to maintain the blood pressure. But that ability to maintain pressure, to relax when it needs to relax and to contract when it needs to contract, it begins to diminish as we grow older.
Okay.
And then in addition, we Africans have a problem. They're looking at the way we handle our salt intake. We seem to be much more sensitive. Our hypertension is much more sensitive.
Because I was in Europe and the amount of salt they take
a lot of salt.
I could not have taken half of it.
It's genetics. It's absolute genetics. We black people simply don't handle salt as well as white people do. So those compounding aspects tend to make us more susceptible to things like hypertension. And in addition, things like diabetes. Those two things are the two top causes of kidney disease and renal failure, kidney failure. And that's why we have a lot of dialysis centers in this country. So back to this. The thing is to keep these blood vessels clean as possible. And so we're going to mention a discovery that came up in the 1990s, which was extremely important because the last thing you want is for this thing to get blocked.
Oh, well, if it gets blocked, then that's
it. That's it.
You are done.
What they discovered in 1998, 1999, three American scientists, they discovered that there's something called the relaxing factor. They found out that this relaxing factor is produced by the body to relax the blood vessels. Remember we said that the body has to be able to relax and contract appropriately. The body produces the factor, the chemical that allows that to happen. As we grow older, that relaxing factor reduces. It
the
diminishes.
Capacity to then relax the arteries
reduces.
diminishes.
Another thing I forgot to mention is that the arteries themselves get hardened. That's called atherosclerosis. So the walls get hardened, and that again contributes to
what are regard to this? What are ACE inhibitors?
ACE inhibitors.
Yes.
It addresses the control. It's a control. The kidneys also control blood pressure and blood regulations. Okay. The kidneys, the brain, and the heart all control blood pressure. So ACE inhibitors are a pathway in the kidney that they control the.
Okay,
relaxing.
that's not in the heart, it's in the kidney.
It's not in the heart, it's a control in the kidneys. So it controls the relaxation and contraction of the blood vessels. Again, the higher control. So there are two main causes of hypertension. The higher control in the heart, the brain, the kidneys, that control all the blood vessels everywhere. And then the local area where the blood vessels themselves are either too hard or they have plaques in them or they are blocked. So those are all issues that we want to attend to. I mentioned the relaxing factor. Now they found out in the 1990s that the relaxing factor is actually a substance called nitric oxide, NO. And this was the Nobel Prize was that they found out that NO can be produced by a simple nutrient called a protein called L-arginine.
L-arginine.
Yes. That's one of the amino acids. It's a simple nutrient called L-arginine. And they found out that you can take about 5 grams of L-arginine and it will produce your normal daily requirement of nitric oxide. Again, I have to emphasize, your nitric oxide levels diminish as you grow older. So it's important, and they emphasize this, it's important that you begin to take things like L-arginine and other nutrients that will help to nourish. Because right now we're just talking about how to nourish the walls of the blood vessels. This is the most important aspect. There are other things too, like coenzyme 10, CoQ10. There are things like omega-3 fatty acids, which address inflammation. And there are, of course, the B vitamins and other things, very, very important for brain function as well as for the function of the heart and the blood vessels. The key, again, I can't emphasize this enough, is that you have to take in the nutrients that ensure that your blood vessels are healthy.
Are there any things we can take to flush, just as we can flush, every night I take antiseptic flush to flush my mouth. Are there any things we can take to flush the arteries of the heart?
I'm sorry, Father, to disappoint you, but no, nothing per se flushes your arteries like that. You just have to take the right kind of nutrients. They found out to L-arginine, in regards to flushing, they said if they found that L-arginine converted to nitric oxide will help to actually clean up and repair these plaques. But you have to take it over time. You have to make sure that you're having the right amounts of nitric oxide in the body. Now, let me just go back to it. L-arginine was not the only thing that they found out could help to clean up the blood, to help to produce nitric oxide. They found out that things like vitamin D, if you had enough vitamin D, staying in the sunlight, it can help to produce more of nitric oxide. There are certain things like beets, they found out can produce.
Beets, yes.
There's a drink called noni drink. They found out that some of it actually helps to increase the levels of nitric oxide. So there are other things, but you have to search for them. I will mention a few of them here. But once you're taking, if you can't take nutrients or supplements, take as much green leafy vegetables as possible, because those, to a very large extent, contain many of the right
leafy
nutrients.
Vegetables like ugu and
yes, like ugu, spinach, lettuce, cabbages, and all those things. But they have to be raw. They have to be fresh. Otherwise, you're going to lose out if you start cooking them or frying them or whatever.
Oh, so the green leafy vegetables that my cook does is not good enough?
If he's cooking them for a long time, yes, it's not good enough. The nutrients tend to be destroyed. The word is denatured by heat. Okay. So you have to ensure that, that's fresh. And it's hard to maintain that. I mean, Father, you have a cook. I don't. There are many people who don't have cooks. We just rely on,
So you are better off because you can just get them and then wash and then eat, since you don't have a cook to cook it.
Well, I don't have the time to go out and start getting them fresh all the time. It requires that you pay attention to that aspect as well. So I just don't take chances. I just look for the right nutrients, the right supplements, and I just take them and I try to cover. And I think we talked about that too. There are supplements and nutrients. Thank God we live in the 20th century. Yes, there's been an increase in all kinds of